Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are going to peel back the layers on a very specific, highly targeted financial pitch from American financing. If you've been feeling the pinch of the current economy, and honestly who hasn't, you are exactly the audience this message was engineered for. We're going to break down the exact mechanics of their pitch, diving into both the emotional hooks they use and the hard mathematical arguments they make to sell what they call a financial reset.
Look at how they kick things off right out of the gate. The cost of living isn't just high, it's exhausting. See what they did there? They aren't leading with boring numbers or interest rates, they are going straight for the emotional core. By explicitly acknowledging that overwhelming, day-to-day burden that the economy places on families and specifically using a word as heavy as exhausting, the pitch instantly aligns itself with the fatigue so many of us feel just trying to keep our heads above water.
All right, let's get into the first big concept they use. Section 1. The 20% survival tax.
The reality they point out is that families aren't necessarily racking up debt on luxury vacations or fancy cars right now. Instead, they are leaning heavily on credit cards just to cover the absolute basics. We're talking groceries, gas, utility bills. By zooming in on these unavoidable expenses, the pitch paints a vivid picture of a vicious cycle where people are quite literally forced to borrow money just to maintain their baseline standard of living.
And this brings us to what is, frankly, a brilliant piece of framing, the survival tax. They argue that if you're using credit cards for those basics, you are essentially paying a survival tax of 20% or more. Think about the psychology of that phrasing. It's no longer just an interest rate, right? It feels like a massive premium, basically a penalty, that you're being charged just for existing in today's economy.
So, what's their proposed way out of this? That brings us to Section 2, tapping into home equity.
Notice the stark, almost jarring emotional contrast they set up here. They ask a very pointed, relatable question. Why keep handing your hard-earned paycheck to the big banks when you can keep it for your family? It's a classic us versus them dynamic. It pits high-interest credit card debt, which they characterize as just tossing your money into the void to face these big banks, against the deep emotional priority of protecting your own household. It brilliantly positions their solution as a way to reclaim your power.
Okay, but how do they actually propose you stop handing that paycheck over? Well, the core mechanism American financing is pushing is tapping into your home's equity. They're suggesting that homeowners unlock the built-up value sitting in their property to completely wipe out that high-interest credit card debt. So functionally, you are trading one type of debt, that brutal 20% survival tax on your cards, for a structurally different type of debt tied to your house, all to kill off those compounding interest rates.
But an emotional pitch can only take you so far. Eventually, you have to show the receipts. Section 3, the math behind the savings.
Here is the absolute analytical engine of their whole argument. They draw a direct comparison between two wildly different financial environments. On one side, you've got the credit card rates we just talked about, hovering at 20+%. On the other side, they present their mortgage rates, which they state are currently averaging somewhere in the 5s. That massive chasm between 20+% and roughly 5%, that gap is the entire foundation of the financial benefit they're offering. And that gap translates into a very tangible, very attractive monthly figure. They claim that by making this exact swap, using equity at a rate in the 5s to nuke your debt at 20%, their customers are saving an average of $800 a month. I mean, think about it. $800 is a massive injection of cash flow right back into a strained monthly household budget.
But they don't stop there. That $800 a month doesn't just sit in a vacuum, it accumulates. The pitch rapidly scales that monthly figure up to an annual one, pointing out that $800 a month translates to nearly $10,000 a year put right back in a family's pocket. By expanding the timeline to a full year, the sheer scale of the savings sounds genuinely life-changing for a stressed-out homeowner.
Which leads us to their grand finale, Section 4, a total financial reset. To actually get people to pick up the phone and take the leap, they outline a remarkably low-friction process. They hit 3 key points to completely eliminate your hesitation. First, they promise checking your options only takes 10 minutes. Second, there are absolutely 0 upfront fees and no obligation. And third, this is a really smart detail, you speak to a salary-based consultant. They specifically use that phrase to reassure you that you won't be fending off some aggressive, commission-hungry salesperson. And then, to firmly close the deal and create a massive sense of urgency, they drop a kicker. They offer the possibility of delaying 2 full mortgage payments if you initiate the process right away. This is totally designed to promise not just the long-term savings we talked about, but instant, immediate relief from your monthly obligations.
So, stepping back and looking objectively at how American financing constructs this, from weaponizing the exhaustion of the survival tax to the undeniable allure of saving 10 grand a year, it is an incredibly tightly woven argument. But here is the ultimate question you have to ask yourself. Does trading unsecured credit card debt for debt explicitly tied to the roof over your head truly constitute a reset? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Always remember to look under the hood and question the mechanics of the pitches you see out there in the wild. Catch you next time.